Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people playing roles? I certainly have. Every day people put on masks, pretending to be someone they're not. But here's the fascinating part. Once you learn how to read between the lines, you can see right through the act. I remember being in a meeting where everyone seemed agreeable, nodding, smiling, playing along. But beneath those friendly faces, there were hidden agendas. It wasn't just in what they said, it was in their silence, the subtle shifts in their posture, the tiny pauses in their speech. And trust me, once you learn to spot these signs, you'll never look at people the same way again. Ready to see what they're really hiding? Let's dive in. Number 1, the tell me more method. Let me introduce you to a technique that feels like a superpower, only without the cape or flashy tricks. The best part? No one even realizes you're using it. It's incredibly simple but so powerful. All you have to do is sit back, stay calm, and when someone is passionately sharing their story, instead of cutting in with your own thoughts or trying to debate them, you say just 3 little words, tell me more. I discovered this years ago during a silly argument with a friend about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. I was ready with my counter-arguments, but something stopped me. Instead of jumping in, I just smiled and said, tell me more. What happened next blew my mind. They started talking about pizza, sure, but before I knew it, they were sharing childhood memories of family dinners, foods they loved, and even a bizarre story about why they hated pineapple growing up. It wasn't about pizza anymore. It became a deep dive into their inner world, all from just 3 little words. Here's the magic: when people feel truly heard, they lower their guard. They don't feel the need to defend or argue anymore. They start opening up, sometimes revealing way more than they ever planned. You create a safe space, one where they feel comfortable enough to drop their defenses. What seems like casual conversation becomes a window into their fears, motivations, insecurities, and even hopes. And all because you listened. I've used this technique in everything, from business meetings to tricky conversations with friends, and even with people who were clearly trying to be sneaky. Once, during a negotiation, instead of pushing my agenda, I just kept saying, tell me more. By the end, the other party had spilled their entire strategy and why they were desperate for the deal. It was like they handed me the keys to their kingdom, and all I did was listen. It almost felt too easy. But here's the deeper truth. This isn't about outsmarting someone or winning an argument. It's about creating connection. In a world where people are always quick to talk but slow to listen, tell me more is a way to truly understand someone on a deeper level. It forces you to step outside your own ego, to stop planning your next move, and instead focus entirely on the other person. When you ask someone to explain themselves without judgment, you give them a rare gift, being truly heard. And in that moment, you build trust, understanding, and sometimes even healing. This technique reflects one of the core principles of Stoicism: empathy without attachment. You're not manipulating or controlling the conversation. You're observing, understanding, and staying calm. It's not just about reading people. It's about seeing them for who they truly are and giving them the space to reveal their authentic selves. So the next time you're in a conversation, whether it's a friendly chat, a heated debate, or a high-stakes negotiation, try the tell me more technique. You'll be amazed at how much deeper the conversation goes, how much people reveal, and how easy it becomes to truly understand them without ever needing to push. And in the process, you'll discover that this approach doesn't just help you win conversations, it helps you build real, meaningful connections, grounded in respect and genuine curiosity. That's where the real power lies, not just in seeing others clearly, but in learning more about yourself through them. Number 2, observe how they handle individuals in lower positions. If you really want to understand someone's true character, don't just focus on how they treat you. Watch how they treat those they believe are beneath them. This might feel uncomfortable because it reveals a raw truth about human nature. Whether it's a waiter at a restaurant, a cashier at the store, or a colleague lower on the corporate ladder, how someone behaves around those with less power speaks volumes about who they really are. I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to work with someone who, on the surface, seemed like the nicest person, charming, funny, and always respectful in meetings. But one day, we went out to lunch, and I saw a different side of them. The moment we sat down, they were rude to the waiter, barking orders like they were royalty, and the server was just a nuisance. It was shocking to see how quickly they shifted from friendly to dismissive, like a mask falling off. That moment woke me up. I realized this wasn't a slip-up. It was a glimpse of their true nature. They were only kind when it suited them. Here's the reality. People reveal who they really are when they think no one important is watching. If someone is rude to the waiter, they'll be rude to anyone they believe can't stand up to them. If they belittle a colleague in a junior position, that same arrogance and lack of respect will show up in other areas of their life. The person who's kind to you but cruel to others, they're not kind, they're calculating. Think about it. When there's no social pressure to be polite and they think they can get away with treating someone poorly, that's when their true personality shines through. Stoicism teaches us to observe human behavior with clarity, and this is one of the clearest signs of a person's integrity. It's easy to be nice when you've got something to gain, but true character is revealed when someone has nothing to lose. I've applied this principle in friendships, work relationships, and even in dating. It's become a silent test for me. If someone treats the janitor with respect, says thank you to the bus driver, or shows kindness to a stranger, that's someone worth keeping in your life. But if they're quick to be harsh or dismissive with those they see as a lower, that's a red flag that you can't ignore. Here's where it gets even more profound. How we treat others is often a reflection of how we see ourselves. People who show respect to everyone, regardless of status, are usually secure within themselves. They don't need to tear others down to feel important. But those who are cruel, they're often projecting their own insecurities, trying to lift themselves up by stepping on others they think are weaker. It's a subtle form of arrogance, something Stoicism warns us to recognize and avoid within ourselves. So if you want to know who someone truly is, don't be fooled by how they treat the people they're trying to impress. Instead, pay close attention to how they act around those who have nothing to offer. That's the surest way to see beyond the mask and into the heart of who they really are. Number 3, the secret to their present lies in their past. If you want to truly understand someone, don't just focus on what they're doing today. Take a deep look at their past. People often say, the past is behind us. But here's the truth. It's never really gone. It's shaping everything about who they are right now, whether they realize it or not. Their past experiences, traumas, victories, and relationships are all silently influencing how they think, behave, and even treat you. This idea might make some uncomfortable because it implies that people don't just move on. Instead, they carry their history with them, and often that history is the blueprint for their actions today. I remember a friend who always seemed on edge, defensive, quick to anger, and overly cautious in relationships. At first, I thought that was just their personality. But as I got to know them better, I learned about their past. They had been deeply betrayed by people they trusted, faced financial hardships, and grew up in an environment where they constantly had to prove their worth. Suddenly, everything clicked. Their defensiveness wasn't random. It was a survival tactic, shaped by years of feeling they had to protect themselves. Here's the thing. Our past leaves marks, sometimes scars, and those scars explain why someone acts the way they do. A person who grew up feeling neglected might now crave constant attention. Someone who's been betrayed in business may be skeptical of anyone offering help. The key here isn't to make excuses for people's behavior, but to understand that they're not always reacting to the present moment. They're reacting to echoes of their past. Stoicism teaches us to look at things as they are, without judgment. Understanding someone's past is part of seeing them clearly, without getting caught up in your own emotional reactions. I've seen this play out in romantic relationships too. Have you ever dated someone who seemed perfectly fine at first, only for certain patterns to start emerging later? Maybe they're overly jealous, or struggle with commitment. More often than not, if you dig deep enough, you'll find that their past relationships have left unhealed wounds. It's that fear of being hurt again that drives their behavior now. Understanding this doesn't mean you have to tolerate toxic behavior, but it gives you a crucial insight. They're not acting out of the present, they're reacting to the pain of their past. And here's the harsh reality. Many people live stuck in cycles, replaying behaviors they learned from past experiences. It's like they're trapped, reliving the same patterns over and over without even realizing it. That coworker constantly seeking validation? They might be replaying a childhood where they never felt good enough. The friend who sabotages every relationship. They're likely driven by a deep fear of rejection that stems from old heartbreak. The way they react, the habits they cling to, the decisions they make. It's all a reflection of their unresolved past. But here's where it gets deeper. Understanding someone's past doesn't just help you navigate your relationship with them, it might even help them break free from their own cycles. By gently pointing out the patterns they're repeating, you might help them become more self-aware. And in doing so, they might finally confront what they've been avoiding for years. Stoicism emphasizes self-reflection and personal growth, and sometimes understanding someone's past can help you guide them toward their own transformation. It's easy to judge people based on how they're acting right now, but the past is the key to unlocking the reasons behind those actions. When you start seeing people's behavior as a response to their history, you can approach them with more empathy while also protecting yourself from getting drawn into their unresolved issues. In short, the past is always present. If you want to truly understand someone, you have to see the full picture, not just the chapter they're currently living. Number 4, sudden changes in tone signal, lies or hesitation. Ever notice how someone's voice can shift when they're not being completely honest? One of the biggest giveaways that someone is lying or holding something back is a sudden change in their tone of voice. Most people don't even realize it, but our voices can often betray the truth, even when our words don't. When people are speaking with confidence, their tone is usually steady, their pace even, and their words flow naturally. But when there's a lie, hesitation, or discomfort, something changes. It could be subtle, a slight pause or a pitch that's just a bit off. Or it could be more obvious, like a stutter or a drop in energy. It's like their subconscious is trying to raise a red flag, hoping you'll notice. I remember a co-worker who was always smooth, always confident, and always knew exactly what to say. But one day, we were discussing a project deadline, and something changed. His voice, usually upbeat and clear, suddenly dropped. He spoke slower, and his words felt hesitant. Immediately, I sensed something wasn't right. Sure enough, it turned out he hadn't made any progress on the project and was trying to cover it up. That shift in tone was the giveaway. He wasn't telling the full truth, and his voice couldn't hide it. Here's why this happens. When people lie or feel uncomfortable, there's a conflict between their body and mind. Their brain is trying to keep the lie or uncertainty hidden, but their voice betrays the stress. It could be a higher pitch, a crack in their voice, or even a pause that lingers a second too long. Their tone is out of sync with their words. Think about the last time you caught someone in a lie. What did their voice sound like? Did it get quieter? Did they start speaking faster? Maybe their tone became overly cheerful, like they were trying too hard to sound normal. These are all signs that something's off. The shift in tone is a subconscious signal of discomfort, whether they're lying, hiding something, or just unsure of themselves. And it's not just about catching lies. Sudden changes in tone can also reveal hesitation or uncertainty. I once had a friend who was always enthusiastic when we made plans, but if I suggested something she didn't really want to do, her tone would change instantly. She'd go from excited to flat, like someone flipped a switch. Even if her words said yes, her voice told me otherwise. This happens all the time in relationships, business deals, and even casual conversations. You've probably experienced it yourself. Someone is upbeat and friendly, but then suddenly becomes defensive or evasive. Even if their words don't match, the tone tells you all you need to know. When someone's tone shifts unexpectedly, whether it's a sudden drop in energy, a hesitation, or a change in pitch, that's when you need to stop focusing on what they're saying and start listening to how they're saying it. Their voice is often the window into their real feelings. They might not be outright lying, but there's a good chance they're holding back something important. Here's where Stoicism comes in. People often lie not just to deceive others, but to deceive themselves. Their discomfort with the lie they're telling, or the truth they're avoiding, seeps into their voice without them even realizing it. Stoicism teaches us to observe without judgment, and this is a powerful way to use that skill. By paying attention to the subtle shifts in someone's tone, you can get a clearer picture of their inner struggle. And it's not just about other people. We do this to ourselves too. How often have you said something you didn't fully believe and felt your own voice falter? Your tone becomes a mirror of your own doubt. This is why Stoicism emphasizes aligning your thoughts, words, and actions. When they're not in harmony, it shows, even in ways you can't control. So next time you're in a conversation and notice a sudden shift in tone, whether it's a drop in energy, an awkward pause, or a change in pitch, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, what are they holding back? What are they uncomfortable with? It might not be a full lie, but there's a good chance they're not telling you the whole truth. Their voice is their tell, and if you listen closely, you'll hear it every time. Number 5. They are honest when they believe no one is observing. If you truly want to know who someone is at their core, don't watch them in the spotlight. Watch them when they think no one's paying attention. It's in those quiet, unnoticed moments that people reveal their true selves. The mask they wear for society slips, and the social persona they've crafted to fit in or get ahead falls away. What's left is the real them. It's a hard truth to accept because most of us like to believe that who we are in public is the same as who we are in private. But the reality? People often behave very differently when they believe no one's watching. I learned this lesson firsthand working with a manager who always seemed so polished and professional when the boss was around. She'd make polite small talk, maintain a calm demeanor, and never raise her voice. But the moment the higher-ups left the office, it was like she became a different person. She'd snap at the team, make condescending remarks, and treat people with no respect. It was shocking, but it taught me one thing. The person someone becomes when they don't think they're being watched, that's their most authentic self. When people are in the spotlight, they're hyper-aware of how others see them. They act in ways they believe will earn approval or avoid conflict, but the moment they think no one's paying attention, their filters drop. You see it in small moments, how they react when they think no one will notice, how they treat someone who can't do anything for them, or how they behave when they believe they won't be held accountable. These seemingly insignificant moments are where their true nature is revealed. It's in how they handle stress, how they respond to frustration, and how they treat people when they think no one's looking. If you want to understand someone's character, don't focus on the grand gestures. Look at the little things. This applies to every aspect of life: relationships, business, even casual encounters. Think about romantic relationships. In the beginning, both people are usually on their best behavior, trying to impress each other. But if you really want to know who they are, watch them in the quiet moments when they're not trying to impress you. How do they treat the waitress when you're out to dinner? How do they act when they're stressed or when they think you're not paying attention? Do they still show kindness, patience, and respect? Or do they let their guard down and reveal something less flattering? I've seen this play out in social settings too. You might have a friend who's the life of the party when everyone's watching, always cracking jokes and being the center of attention. But when they think no one's noticing, their demeanor changes. Maybe they become selfish or dismissive. Their true character doesn't show in the big public moments. It's in the small, hidden ones. Here's where the Stoic perspective comes in. As a Stoic, you're trained to observe life objectively and without judgment. People will often reveal their true nature when they believe they're off stage. It's in these moments that you can truly understand who they are. Stoicism teaches us that virtue isn't about how we act when people are watching. It's about how we behave when no one is. The person who remains kind, patient, and respectful even when there's no audience, no reward. That's someone who lives in alignment with Stoic values. But here's the reality. Many people aren't like that. They compartmentalize their public and private selves, acting one way to maintain their image in public while letting their less appealing traits come out in private. I had a colleague who was incredibly supportive and warm in group meetings. He always had something positive to say and made a point of showing support. But when we were alone, his tone completely shifted. He was short, dismissive, and uninterested in helping, unless it directly benefited him. That's when I realized his public persona was just that, a persona. The most honest moments aren't when someone's under the spotlight. They're when they think no one's watching. Whether they're acting with kindness or cruelty, it's in these unguarded moments that the truth comes out. And that's where you gain real insight into who they are. If someone can only be good when others are watching, it's not real goodness, it's a performance. Here's the deeper Stoic lesson. True character is who you are in the shadows, not in the spotlight. Stoicism teaches us to live in alignment with our values at all times, regardless of who's watching. Whether the room is full or empty, a Stoic's actions are consistent because they come from within, not from the need for external validation. So the next time you want to truly understand someone, don't focus on their grand gestures or their public persona. Instead, pay attention to what they do when the spotlight is off. That's when you'll find their real character. And that's where the truth lives. Number 6. Emotional reactions reveal priorities. If you really want to understand what truly matters to someone, don't just listen to their words. Watch how they react emotionally in different situations. Emotions are like an unfiltered window into a person's soul. They reveal their priorities, their values, and the things they hold closest to their hearts. This might be hard to accept because we all like to believe we're in control of our emotions and that we can hide what we truly care about. But here's the truth. When someone reacts strongly, whether it's through anger, excitement, or even anxiety, it's a clear sign that their emotional response is tied to something deeply important to them. I remember a time when I worked with a colleague who was always calm, composed, and seemingly unshakable. Nothing appeared to bother him. But during one routine meeting, someone suggested a minor change to one of his projects, and he suddenly exploded. His outburst was so unexpected that it left everyone in the room stunned. It wasn't about the small change. It was because that project was his baby. He had poured countless hours into it, and to him, it was more than just work. It was personal. That emotional reaction revealed how much the project truly mattered to him, even though he had never expressed it before. People don't always tell you what matters most with words, but their emotions never lie. For example, when a boss gets angry because you question their decision, it's not just about protecting their authority. It's often tied to their sense of self-worth and being seen as right. Or when a friend gets unusually defensive over a small comment, it's likely because what you said struck a deep insecurity or touched on something they value. People's strongest emotional reactions, whether positive or negative, are the clearest indicators of their deepest priorities. Even the coolest, most indifferent individuals will show you what matters to them when they feel something they care about is being threatened, questioned, or recognized. It's not just about anger or frustration either. Positive reactions like joy or excitement are just as telling. For instance, when someone lights up talking about a hobby or side hustle, you can be sure that it's a core passion, even if they've never explicitly told you. In relationships, this principle can be a game changer. If you're dating someone and they get disproportionately upset when plans fall through, that's a clue that spending quality time with you is very important to them. Or if they get excited whenever you talk about future plans, it shows how much creating shared experiences matters to them. Emotions are always tied to values, and if you pay attention to someone's emotional cues, you'll get a clear map of their priorities without them ever needing to say a word. Take defensiveness, for example. Let's say you casually mention that someone's been late a few times, and instead of calmly acknowledging it, they get defensive and flustered. That reaction isn't just about being late. It's because being seen as unreliable clashes with how they view themselves or want to be perceived. Their emotional outburst reflects how much their identity as reliable person means to them. As Stoics, we're taught to observe human behavior objectively, without judgment. Emotions are one of the most revealing aspects of behavior. When someone's emotions flare up, it's because something they value is at stake. By paying attention to these moments, you can gain a deeper understanding of the people around you and of yourself. Here's the deeper Stoic lesson. Your own emotions also reveal your priorities. The next time you find yourself reacting strongly to something, take a moment to reflect. Why are you feeling this way? Is it because the issue truly matters to you, or are you letting your ego get in the way? Are you angry because someone questioned your integrity, or are you just upset that your reputation was challenged? Stoicism teaches us that by understanding our emotional reactions, we can gain greater control over them. We can recognize when our emotions are tied to values that matter and when they're simply a reflection of our pride or insecurities. Reading people isn't magic. It's about observing the subtle signals they give off, from body language to emotional reactions. These signals speak volumes about their true intentions, values, and priorities. Stoicism gives you the edge by teaching you to observe without judgment, allowing you to see past the surface and understand the real, unspoken truths beneath. But this skill isn't just about gaining an advantage in social situations. It's about gaining wisdom and self-awareness. The more you observe others, the more you learn about yourself. What triggers your emotions? What do you truly value? And how can you live more in alignment with your own principles? By learning to read people with honesty and wisdom, you not only navigate life more smoothly, but you also become a more thoughtful, self-aware person. That's the real power of this insight, to use it not for manipulation, but for wisdom and personal growth. So, the next time you find yourself wondering what truly matters to someone, don't just listen to their words, watch how they react. Emotions speak louder than words, and they reveal priorities we often try to hide. As you walk through life, let your observations guide you, but always remember, the most important emotional reactions to understand are your own. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay mindful, stay stoic.